They want to kill you. The top financial powers of the world are out to get an iron-fisted control over the people of this planet so that they will be able to then kill most of the population of the earth. They want you dead. These financial powers are working to debilitate the people of this planet in order to facilitate that iron-fisted control, which will enable them to reduce the population of the earth. In order to accomplish that debilitation, these powers are working to reduce the economic capabilities and the mental abilities of the people, and to destroy the health of the people and to make them unable to defend themselves. In order to debilitate the economic capabilities of the people, in the year 1910, men from the J.P. Morgan Bank and the Rockefeller banking interests had a meeting with Paul M. Warburg of the Kuhn Loeb Bank, in which meeting they produced the plan for the Federal Reserve System, and a version of it was pushed through Congress in 1913. This meeting of bankers was revealed in the autobiography of one of the men involved, banker Frank A. Vanderlip. Look it up. The Federal Reserve System creates all of our money from debt, and therefore the debt can never be paid off, and the debt increases forever. What does it mean to say that money is created from debt? The government sells bonds of indebtedness to the banks. Then the Federal Reserve System buys those bonds from the banks. Then, by law, the banks are authorized to loan up to 10 times as much money as the Federal Reserve credit they got for the bonds. This sequence of transactions results in an increase in the supply of money. At one time, the new money existed simply as numbers written on ledgers in the banks. Nowadays, nearly all money exists as zeros and ones in binary code in the computers of the banks. As God created the universe out of nothing, the Federal Reserve System creates the credit with which it buys the bonds from the banks out of nothing. These activities of the Federal Reserve System have reduced the value of the dollar to 1% of the value that it had at the beginning of the 20th century. Look it up. In the same year of 1913 that the Federal Reserve System was set up, the 16th Amendment to the Constitution went into effect. As we all know, this amendment is about the income tax. But in the year 1915, in the case of Brushaber versus Union Pacific Railroad, the Supreme Court ruled that the 16th Amendment gave Congress no new power to tax. Look it up. Nevertheless, the 16th Amendment has been used as a pretext to put a heavy, debilitating burden on the American workers in a manner which is actually unconstitutional. In the Butchers' Union case of 1885, in the Supreme Court, two concurrent opinions stated that working for a living was an unalienable right, and it therefore may not be taxed. The so-called personal income tax was only meant to suppress the people, not to finance the government. It only helps to pay the interest on the national debt, an interest that never needed to exist. The man who set up the present system of pay-as-you-go payroll taxes was Mr. Beardsley Rummel, R-U-M-L, chairman of the New York Federal Reserve Bank. He gave a speech to the Americans for Democratic Action in which he stated that taxes, which include what are called income taxes, are not for funding the government, but are for manipulating society. Look this guy up. Subsequent to the setting up of the Federal Reserve System and the 16th Amendment in 1913, in the year 1917, Congress passed the Trading with the Enemy Act, which was signed into law. This law gave the government total control over all commercial activity in the United States of anyone who was a citizen of an enemy nation. Paragraph B of that act specifically exempted American citizens from its provisions. However, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, on his first day in office in 1933, asked Congress to repeal that Section B, and they did so. This repeal had the effect of virtually making Americans to be treated as enemies of the United States. Then Roosevelt demanded the same powers to deal with domestic issues that he would have had to prosecute a war. The legal threads based on the repeal of Paragraph B and the declaration of warlike emergencies are undoubtedly how FDR justified the unconstitutional proposals and policies of his administration. In the year 1973, a subcommittee of the United States Senate issued Senate Report 93-549, in which it is stated that because of several declared states of emergency, America had not been operating under the rule of the Constitution since the beginning of Roosevelt's first term. Look up that Senate Report 93-549, as well as the Trading with the Enemy Act and the repeal of that Paragraph B. On top of reducing economic capability, the powers who are tightening their control over us are also working to debilitate the people's mental capability. One method of that debilitation is to use the U.S. Department of Education to destroy the quality of the education of American students. A former head of policy of that department has written a book detailing just how that has been done. Her name is Charlotte Iserby. The name of her book is The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. It is available from InfoWarsStore.com. Look it up. In addition to economic and mental debilitation, many ways are being used to damage the physical health of the people. One of these ways is to produce food from genetically modified plants and animals. The main producer of genetically modified organisms is the Monsanto Company, which some people call Monsatan. Monsanto does not allow GMO food to be served in its own dining rooms. Look up GMO food. Another way of damaging our health is the use of bisphenol A in the linings of cans of food. It gets into the food and wreaks havoc on the bodies of men and women as an exoestrogen. Look up bisphenol A. To help defend you against attacks on your health, food supplements and water filters are available at InfoWarsStore.com. Look up InfoWarsStore.com. As well as the economic, mental, and physical health debilitations that are being produced The would-be world controllers are working to reduce the capability of the people to defend themselves. The main way of doing this reduction of capability is gun control, and ultimately a total ban on guns in the hands of the people. But in England, it is now against the law even to defend yourself against a criminal attack in any manner. Look that up. Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, and Pol Pot had in common the fact that before they killed millions, they first disarmed them. The Turks made the Armenians stack their arms and then killed more than 1 million of them. Look it up if you can stomach it. Could it happen here? If you think not, then think again. The Nazis and the Russian communists were installed and built up into war machines by British and American financiers and governments, as is shown in books by Anthony Sutton. Mao in China was installed and built up by the same forces, as is shown by Professor Carroll Quigley in his book Tragedy and Hope, which is available at InfoWarsStore.com. Look these facts up. These forces seeking world domination include the British royal family, the Rothschild interests, and the Rockefeller family. Prince Charles says that he is proud to be a descendant of Vlad the Impaler, one who is more widely known by the name Dracula. David Rockefeller, in his autobiography, says that he is proud to be working to put bankers in charge of planet Earth. Look it up. These internationalist money men are working to achieve total domination of the Earth through numerous organizations, not only the United Nations, but also the Royal Institute of International Affairs in Britain, the Council on Foreign Relations in America, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, and many others. Look these organizations up. A favorite method that these malevolent forces used to extend their domination is to create a real crisis or to publicize a false crisis and then to provide the solution that makes events move in the direction which they desire. In this type of process, they make use of the concepts of the German philosopher Hegel, Hegel. Look him up. In the case of the global warming crisis, real or not, the solution is to reduce economic activity, impoverishing the people, thus making it more difficult for them to resist those who would dominate them. And when there are mass shootings, the proposed solution is gun control and to ban guns, which would make the people defenseless. As Rahm Emanuel, new mayor of Chicago, said, "Never let a crisis go to waste." Look it up. Then there is the poverty crisis. The government, while deliberately impoverishing the people, provides a solution to poverty with the government dole, which at the present time is providing food and housing for many. Slave owners provided all of the food, clothing, and shelter that their slaves were allowed to have. This relationship increased the slave owners' power to control. Conversely, When the government provides all the food, clothing, and shelter for the people, then the government will have such a degree of control that it will be slave owner, and the people will be its slaves. And need I mention the terrorism crisis? Among the solutions to the terrorism crisis are the Patriot Acts, which have shredded the Bill of Rights. Another solution justified by that crisis is Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. That section authorizes the federal government to arrest and hold indefinitely, without trial, any American, or to kill any American at the arbitrary will of the President. This meaning of Section 1021 is attested to by lawyer Stuart Rhodes, Ph.D., founder of Oath Keepers. Other legal scholars agree with his viewpoint. Despite government denials of that meaning, look it up. Further efforts to solve the terrorism crisis in ways to destroy the rights of Americans include the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security, especially that part of it which is the Transportation Security Agency. That agency, the TSA, in the guise of fighting terrorism, actually has the purpose of getting Americans used to the routine violation of their bodies in airports and elsewhere in ways which previously were done only to criminals entering prison. Look up the TSA. The most effective crises are wars. World Wars I and II, the Korean and Vietnam Wars, the wars in Iraq, and the war in Afghanistan have all led to a much more regimented world. The global financiers and the governments they run are debilitating the people of the world in order to put them and you into a vice-like grip. The purpose of that vice-like grip is to make it possible for them to be able to reduce the population of this planet. Notable figures who have publicly endorsed reducing the population of the planet include Bill Gates, Ted Turner, and Maurice Strong of the United Nations. Look these guys up. The globalists want to impoverish you, dumb you down, and make you sick. They want to make you defenseless so that you will have no way out of the future they have planned for you. That future is a boot stamping in the face of humanity forever. The plan of the globalist money powers is debilitate, control, kill. They want to kill you. They want you dead. Check all of these things out. Save your life. Investigate Infowars.com. Look it up.